What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleashed, and decided we're going to strip things down for today, mainly because of poor planning on my part. But here we are. We got the trio. We have got myself of Sherdog, of MMA On Point, my MMA News, so you know who I am. And of course, you know the other two gentlemen that are on this panel, as they always are. First, we're going to introduce the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He is the jack of all trades that has mastered them all, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
I'm doing really well. It feels great to be talking on a Monday after some fights. It feels not normal, but it feels like a step in the direction of normal. I guess we'll see.
It's a little preview of what a little life used to be like when every Saturday was dominated by fights. Jay Petri, also Sherdog.com, the associate editor there. He is the man with all the numbers, all the stats, all the math. Jay, good to see you, brother. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I got to say, I was really looking forward to the idea of us being able to talk shop and talk. So what happened this weekend instead of, so did you guys hear that thing that guy said on Twitter? Boy, that was really something, huh? So there's meat on these bones, and there's a crazy amount to talk about. So without further dudes, let's talk about it. Stat of the week is 9. Justin Gaethje, winner at the headliner UFC 249, has earned 9 post-fight bonuses in his 7-fight UFC career. 9 bonuses, 7 fights. Spoiler alert, that's never happened before. So, 9. Oh my God, Justin Gaethje.
Wow. Yeah, that was very impressive. So, I'm going to go off script a little bit there, inspired by the stat of the week. So let's just go ahead and talk about that main event as if nothing else is going on in the world. Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson headline the card UFC 249 over the weekend. Now, Tony Ferguson stopped by strikes for the first time in his career in the last round. Now, did this fight live up to your expectations, gentlemen?
I'd say it did. I mean, I expected it to involve a lot of damage and a lot of strikes, and yeah, I mean, it was one-sided more so than I expected, and it was one-sided in the direction I did not expect. But for as long as it lasted, I was riveted, because the great thing about watching even a one-sided fight like that, like this, or like Poirier versus Holloway or Holloway versus Ortega, is when you're watching it in the moment, you're still like, okay, at any moment, the other guy could just hit his limit break and something changes drastically. This fight will not have a whole lot of rewatch value for me, because knowing how it ends from the beginning, it's just going to be a one-sided beating where the same guy wins, all 5 rounds in increasingly lopsided fashion. But while it lasted, I was completely transfixed.
Jay, what about you?
Man, this was the edge of my seat kind of fight that I really had hoped it would have been, just knowing the guys and knowing styles make fights, and the way they fought. The way they fight is just too good. Now, it had that comical violence factor where you're just standing there going, no way. No way. Tony can't take that same right hand to that same chin for the 45th time and roll with it and be okay. He can't kind of get clipped. No, he survived just the craziest shellacking, to use a word from the olden days, just a beating, and kept on ticking. His durability was off the charts in a level that I don't even think we quite understood. And honestly, he would have kept going if Herb Dean hadn't saved him. And let's be clear, Herb Dean saved him, and he did so, and it was a good call. It was a good stoppage. The moment where he took, I think it was just a power jab. It wasn't even anything crazy. And he turned away, and his eyes were jacked up, and he was kind of looking here and here at the same time. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, maybe it's time. I didn't see it playing out like that long, that dominant for Gaethje, etc., etc. Remember, Gaethje took this fight in 5 weeks' notice. It's not like he was Tony preparing for Khabib and then it swapped out. No, this is Gaethje. Yeah, I guess. I don't really like short notice fights, but I'll take this one. It's only 5 weeks. I'll be fine. And he fights for 24 minutes. and he's throwing bombs and bombs and bombs. There's not. I mean, I'm pretty sure every strike of his was a significant strike in this fight.
Right. And then magnify that by the being in an empty arena and hearing every single punch land with a certain. It almost sounded like an action movie. The way those punches were landing, it was frightening.
Oh yeah,
like you expect to see like a Foley editor like hitting a cardboard box with like a belt or something.
It was.
Whack.
Yeah, the only thing that was mentioned from the screen was like a big flashing letters that said Zowie. Like that was a massive amount of visceral sound.
So Adam West Batman action for you.
That's pow, bam, biff. So I got to ask y'all something. Maybe you guys can help me with this. Do you think it deserved fight of the night over Luque Price?
Nope.
Absolutely not.
Nope.
Absolutely not. Now, I will say that the scare that Tony Ferguson gave Gaethje at the end of the second round with that wide uppercut, that was amazing. That was an amazing moment, and maybe it won fight of the night for the drama that moment created. But as far as the overall fight itself, Luque Price was clearly the fight of the night in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. We're all in agreement there too. It was an incredible fight, but
let me throw something at you guys now. So of course this fight was originally supposed to take place on April 18th at the Tachi Palace event that Sherdog founder Jeff Sherwood destroyed via the New York Times to get the governor to shut it down in California. Now, had the fight taken place on that day, do you think we'd be still talking about the same result, or do you think this extra time gave Gaethje a little more edge in his preparation?
I think there's something of that to it. And then one thing that Dana said in the post-fight presser is he thought Tony looked off and wondered how much of it had to do with him needlessly making weight 3 weeks ago. So I think it would have looked different, but at the same time, Gaethje showed me things that he really has not shown in his career up until now. Like, it was easily the best performance of his career to date.
100%.
So I don't know. And I'm speaking as someone who favored Ferguson going in. I favored him by stoppage. I favored him by stoppage probably within the first 3 rounds. And nonetheless, I don't know if there's any version of Tony Ferguson that beats that Justin Gaethje. Like, it was pretty amazing. Like, I'm not writing Ferguson off, but I am saying that Gaethje is a different fighter than I thought he was 2 days ago.
Well, Ben, you touched on something that kind of struck my attention during the fight itself, and it was a wild fight. And I believe I tweeted this at some point during the evening. It was a very wild fight. We saw a lot of action, a lot of violence between the two. However, it was strangely the most conventional either man has ever looked to me.
Yeah, it was. There was not a lot of diversity, especially in Tony Ferguson's game, compared to all the rest. We saw one spinning back elbow, and obviously that's one more than pretty much every other fighter used the entire night. However, they're not Tony Ferguson. Yeah, he was a lot more orthodox in his striking, and I wonder exactly what made him change that. Was it the damage early on from the leg kicks that made him not be able to move and do? Because he would have his footwork, and his footwork was kind of still there. He would do his little pirouettes and dance around a little bit, but no, he didn't have that same chutzpah for, I'm going to throw a spinning back elbow, transition into an uppercut, and then a reverse Tony Franklin elbow, just all kinds of crazy stuff. He's getting beat on. He's trying to come back from that. And that was very interesting to see.
I kind of got the impression, getting back to something that you brought up in the extra weight cut that we were talking. Yeah. We discussed that on this show a few weeks back, and like the needless nature of it. But I wonder now if this did have an effect on his gas tank or just him going out there feeling flat. A lot of times if someone is feeling flat or they're feeling gas, they're not going to go for those high risk maneuvers. They're not going to kind of throw themselves out there to just Eminari roll and and spin kick this and elbows at weird angles, like there's less likelihood that you'll do that because either one, mentally it's just not clicking, or physically it's just not clicking, or you simply just don't have the gas tank or feel like you don't have the reserve power, the reserve in that gas tank to press ahead and burn energy on those high risk techniques. So, and just a thought there.
And part of it may be that, Ferguson has an amazing gas tank no matter what. Like, clearly as a cardiovascular athlete, he is, top 1% of professional fighters. But your cardio always looks better when you're able to dictate the pace. When nobody's making you exert harder, move faster, move where you don't want to move, force you to react and defend yourself, your gas is always going to look great because you're the one who's deciding how much of it you want to spend. This is the first fight I can remember since his last loss, the Michael Johnson fight, where there was someone coming forward at him where if he didn't do something, the guy's going to kick your legs. He's going to kick your legs. He's going to throw a counter left hook. I think his gas was made to look more human and more conventional by the fact that he was having the pace dictated on him constantly for 5 rounds.
Well, you mentioned the fight earlier, but Holloway Poirier, it's that kind of performance. Seriously, look at the performance of Holloway Ortega and his just grooving and styling and lumping him up, 400 strikes in the fight. And then Poirier starts putting hurt on him, and it's not the same pace. And I think we even said this during the broadcast when Holloway fought Poirier. He looks a little tired. I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, that Tony wasn't able to get into his flow, and it kind of wore him out. Relatively speaking, of course, because he still went 24 minutes and was going to keep going.
All right.
But for Bean.
Yeah, that was definitely something to witness there, and we will have more about some of the branching out storylines involved with that main event. But let's talk a little bit about the co-main event. Henry Cejudo, he successfully defends the bantamweight title for the first time, and he does that against the consensus greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominick Cruz, by a second-round stoppage. Again, the first time that we had Dominick Cruz getting stopped by strikes in his career. Previously, he had only been stopped by submission. Now we'll see Uriah Faber at featherweight in his WEC debut. So, gentlemen, now Cejudo has put on quite the resume of wins in his last 4. Demetrious Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominick Cruz. The latter 3 all being by very violent, very definitive stoppages. So, where does Triple C rank when it comes to the greatest win streaks of all time?
It has to be. For me, even though people go poo-poo the lighter weight divisions or whatever, it has to be among the best. Just, he's beating all the best guys. And I don't mean the best guys like, the champion or whatever. No, he's beating the guys that are largely considered the best in divisional history, one after the other. Beating Mighty Mouse, regardless how we feel about the decision and whether we feel it go the other way, greatest flyweight ever, one of the best fighters ever. TJ Dillashaw, lauded as the top 2 in bantamweight. Marlon Moraes It's funny, Marlon Moraes is the lowest name on that list, but think of Marlon Moraes and think of his resume and think of what he's been doing to guys, and what he did is impressive. And then Dominick Cruz. I can only think of a few streaks like that in MMA history that line up where a fighter wins 4 in a row against that legendary names. Like, obviously, Shogun's 2005 middleweight Grand Prix run, Rampage, Little Nog, Overeem before he became Ubereem, and Ricardo Arona. That's that kind of level. When Jones first got the title, Shogun, Rampage, Machida, and Rashad, it's that level of, oh my God, he's beat all these guys in rapid succession. It has to be top 5, top 3 for me, easy.
Right. I was thinking of countering with the John Jones streak that you just mentioned, and that's probably the only one that I can really maybe drive a wedge in the argument, saying that Henry Cejudo has perhaps the greatest win streak, 4-fight win streak of all time. Ben, what's your take?
I'd actually give it to Cejudo by a nose, and I had always been of the opinion that Jones's 2011, that first year that he was champ was the greatest run. Like I always thought it was the greatest year a fighter ever had. Just nosing out Shogun's 2005. But Cejudo might edge that out for the way he beat these people, who he beat. I mean, Jones's run was incredible because, it was 4 former champs in a row. Like, in fact, I think it was even like the last 4 champs of the division and handled them all pretty easily. But even though they'd been champs, a couple of those guys were going to be in decline from there. So you could say, okay, maybe he caught these guys at the right time. I mean, Cejudo, you couldn't name, like, there's nobody missing there. Like, if you wanted to give him the hardest lineup you could out of available people in those weight classes, that's pretty much the 4 people you'd give him. It's just unbelievable. He gutted a division, in a year.
Well, I do think the one flaw you can point at with Cejudo's resume in this is Dominick Cruz. Now, I definitely believe that Dominick Cruz is the greatest bantamweight of all time, and I don't think there's much of an argument to say otherwise. However, he still has been inactive for 4 years, coming off of a loss to Cody Garbrandt. So, were we truly seeing Dominick Cruz at his best form? And that's the version that Henry Cejudo beat.
No, it's definitely not the best Dominick Cruz. He used to be able to come back from these layoffs and be apparently no worse for wear. I mean, very memorable the way he just throttled Mizugaki in like 65 seconds. But his is a style that depends on hand speed and especially foot speed. That foot speed is going, and I mean, I don't know if he'll keep fighting, but if he does, he'll certainly be competitive. I mean, in my opinion, he's probably a top 10 bantamweight right now, even if I wouldn't put him there based on resume. But his days of beating the Henry Cejudos of the world, I think, are over.
I think it would have played out differently if not only, well, here's a couple factors. There's a ton of factors, obviously, and none of them to explain the loss, like a Tito Ortiz explanation. But I mean, he did take the fight on a couple weeks' notice because he was replacing Jose Aldo, who couldn't get into the country. So short notice, 4-year layoff Cruz versus full training camp. There's all the questions. But I thought of another streak that's arguable in the line. Chris Weidman, Silva, Machida Belfort, TRT Belfort. But, the leg break and stuff like that, you have the questions about those. But, I mean, yeah, I want to see what Cruz is going to do because he's my age. He's not an old man. He's not, I'm 39 years old and getting ready to pack it up. He's still got some work to do. And I think I thought he's 33, unless you help me on this one.
Cruz is 33 or 34 this year.
Yeah.
I think he's 34 this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's 34, and he seems like he's way older. So here's the thing. Cruz is 34 years old, and he's coming off of a lengthy layoff, and he's trying to get his bearing back. So, I mean, and it is a good question of, is this Cruz as good on your resume as the other one? Like, there was another guy I was thinking of that had an incredible win streak on paper. Bisping, he beat Talos Laites, who, I mean, Laites was in a title fight at one time, for whatever that's worth. Anderson Silva, Luke Rockhold, and Dan Henderson. Now, on paper, that is a phenomenal lineup. Silva, Rockhold, and Henderson, but context matters to an nth degree when those fights happened. So yeah, I mean, you're convincing me more and more that top 5 isn't fair. That Cejudo's win streak is a top 1, 2, maybe, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it is a fantastic win streak, to say the least. But Marlon Moraes, definitely a top flight name, a dominant champion in another organization. as well. So that's a great mark. TJ Dillashaw, who at the time we were discussing as a pound for pound great, and he was the other name in the greatest bantamweight of all time talks. His trip to flyweight did not go very well for him. 32 seconds, it's over with. And then, of course, DJ Mighty Mouse, the absolute best flyweight that's ever lived, and possibly the greatest fighter of all time, period, ending that historic run. So, I mean, even if we poke holes in Dominick Cruz's inclusion at this stage in Dominick Cruz's career, gotta hand it to Henry Cejudo. He has put together a fantastic win streak there. So now, good of a time as any to hit the swing or miss on this one. No pun intended. Does Henry Cejudo stay retired, gentlemen?
Okay, I'm the sucker. So y'all can like make fun of me like 6 months from now when he's fighting Petr Yan or Aljamain Sterling. It felt sincere in the moment. It didn't seem like we've proven that the guy has no shame and he'll say, and do any crazy thing for attention and for laughs. But that felt like a weird thing to do in an empty arena. It didn't feel like a manicured, manufactured Cejudo moment. I could see him doing a GSP thing and just going away for 2 or 3 years, coming back right on top. I mean, Cejudo's going to be able to walk away, and unless he loses a leg in some kind of tragic accident, he's going to be able to come back straight into a title shot at 125 or 135 in the UFC. It'll be undeniable.
If he loses a leg, he'll just fight at strawweight then.
Give me Ramba Samdet versus Henry Cejudo on one leg. I need that fight now. So if he's serious about, hey, I want to go start a family, he could take a hiatus. Kind of like George St-Pierre never retired. He just said, I've got to walk away for a while and do other things. I could see him doing that. So I'm going to swing. We don't see Cejudo in a UFC cage for at least 24 months.
24 months, that long.
Wow.
Jay, what say you on this one?
Miss me on that. Miss me on it. Cejudo, okay, we'll do the devil's advocate side. I did see Eric Albarracin actually openly weeping about when he heard that was happening, that Cejudo was hanging out. That wasn't just a meme or a bit or something like that, that he didn't know that it was coming. He's like, oh, crap. Oh, no, I thought something was a little off, and Henry was a little subdued and different this week, but I didn't think it'd be that. But Cejudo,
I like how subdued is kicking throw pillows into an empty room on weigh-ins day. That's like
I think low-key. It's nuts. No, but he's just making at least. Well, he's sleeping with him now. He's sleeping with. He saw the picture. He's got the belt, face. Okay, fine. Hey, man, different strokes. But I did say on the media day when I was covering that for the Sherdog that he did seem a little more like a person and less like a character. But I mean, his persona wasn't really there. He had some catchphrases, he had some bits, but he was actually answering questions. And that sounds so strange to say, but think of the interviews he's done with Schmo and Ariel, where it's just, oh, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to fight Valentina Shevchenko. It's like, dude, shut up. Just come on. Give me something here. He is in a really strange position, Cejudo is. He openly said, yeah, if they pay me, if money's right, I'll come back. Is the money ever going to be right for the 125 or 135 pound divisions? I don't think so. I mean, would the UFC really throw $10 million at Cejudo to co-headline on the card that has Israel Adesanya on it or something? I'm not so sure about that. But he's an Olympic gold medalist. He's 33. He's a lifelong competitor. Do we really believe he's going to be like, done, and move on? I can't see it. He's going to get that itch. If Uriah Faber comes back at 40, Henry Cejudo is going to come back before 24 months. I'm saying that.
I'm in agreement with you, Jay. I do think that Henry Cejudo is not retiring, even if he does take a break. And quite honestly, I don't think he's really taking a break either. Here's the thing, like logically, it doesn't make sense as far as the normal lifespan of a fighter. That he would go out on top. I mean, that's such a rare story in combat sports that someone goes out on top. I mean, we even have you think back to George St-Pierre coming back, and granted, he did leave on top yet again, but he still left. He's still leaving that carrot hanging out, a possible Khabib fight. You think back to Floyd Mayweather, who left on top, but he keeps coming back around. And we keep hearing, he's gonna come back again, and whether it's some garbage match against Tenshin Nasukawa or a garbage match disguised as beautiful pageantry in a Conor McGregor fight, like, he has come back and risked his undefeated status, well past the years that most people would be still competing. The thing is, the holding out for more money doesn't really make sense when you don't have the leverage in the first place. So, and I think if we do see him back, it's going to be against a Jose Aldo. It's going to be against a Frankie Edgar. It's going to be against a Uriah Faber, one of the marquee names. If Henry Cejudo is even remotely serious about this, and this is about the money, the UFC is not going. It's not going to shell out top dollar for him against Petr Yan. That's just not happening. That Petr Yan is nowhere near a draw, despite the fact that him alongside Aljamain Sterling are by far the most difficult challenges he can face. They are probably the least likely out of the top names that are going to draw any interest. I think we sooner see them shell out money for a Cody Garbrandt fight than we would Petr Yan or Aljamain Sterling, and Garbrandt is not quite in contention right now. So I don't know what exactly he thinks is going to happen, and quite frankly, I hope it works. I do hope it works. I just don't think it will. And I will say this too about his post presser appearance there. And I think he did an interview on Ariel's show earlier today. I haven't gotten to watch it yet. I think he did. I could be totally wrong. I could have sworn I saw something like that on my Twitter timeline. But anyway, I will say it was kind of refreshing to see him not be the character, as you alluded to before, Jay, to just kind of be himself and just speak candidly and just have a good time while addressing the media. I was reminded of the night he won the title. I'll wait for this fire truck to go past my window. There we go.
It was your son.
Oh, no. No. The fire truck comes because of him. But no, like, I was reminded of sitting in that room at the 227 post-fight presser, where you see this genuine personality. You see, like, okay, this guy has potential to be a pretty good star, and just charming, endearing, and this sincerity about him. So it's the complete opposite of the cringe master thing. And I think back to when I last saw him at the Dominance MMA Media Day, where he was in full-on character, and granted, he broke character when the camera was off and we talked. But as soon as the camera came on, it was all about Dominick Cruz and how he was going to be the intergender champion and whatnot. But I mean, Henry Cejudo, if this is the end for Henry Cejudo, he has definitely cemented himself as one of the greatest combat athletes of all time. So he deserves all the flowers, and we'll just take him at face value. I just don't believe it, though. All right. So now let's get into some of the nuts and bolts about the Cejudo and Cruz fight. What do you guys think of the stoppage by Keith Peterson?
I'm fine with it. Totally fine with it. The only reason that it's even controversial is that in the 0.3 of a second between when Peterson made up his mind and when his body arrived, to break the fighters up, Cruz started to get back up. I mean, if he had jumped in 2 punches earlier when Cruz was still on all fours, no controversy. He took so many unanswered shots, there. It just, once Cejudo got on top of him, if you freeze frame that thing when his butt hits the ground from taking the knee, he's on another planet. I'm totally fine with the stoppage as is. I mean, I understand why people are unhappy about it because like, look, he was getting back up, he was fine. No, like if a guy gets rocked really badly, I mean, we've seen people get slapped back awake in the octagon many, many times, and that is what's like doing serious cumulative damage to their brains. So I'm fine with the stoppage as it was, and again, you know, he stops at a split second earlier. There's even less controversy because Cruz is still flat down on the ground.
Yeah. Jay, were you okay with it?
You know, I did when it first happened. Thumbs down. Didn't like it. No, sir, I don't like it. After a couple replays, I still wasn't crazy about it because it was a whole movement. He got on all fours, kind of, and he leaned up against the fence and he was standing up. I'm not a I was a Mario Yamasaki. I'm not good. If he dies kind of thing. Exactly. I'm not a bend off his shirt kind of whatever. But I do feel like some fights should have deference. No, that doesn't make sense though, because every fight should be treated the same, championship or no. But at the same time, I have that feeling of it was 4:58. The ref obviously should never take into account the time of the fight. Doesn't matter. It's about protecting the fighter. But you have that little thing in the back of your head going, boy, I wish they could have let that play out. I think of Sakuraba in his last win when he fought Zelgalesic in Dream and was on all fours down and he tried to roll for knee bar and it didn't work. And he was getting just butchered, pummeled. And referee didn't do anything. Oh, you can get out. And he got out. Lo and behold, he got out and he hit the knee bar shockingly. And it was amazing and incredible. Not everybody Sakuraba, but could Cruz have gotten that? I don't know. But he didn't have the chance to. I feel like Jason Burgos right now, like, yes and no right now. I get it. I think that's what I'll wrap with. I get it. I understand.
I can tell you why Dominick Cruz did not get the opportunity to have some miraculous comeback. And that's because he got kneed in the head and he was concussed and he was out of it and he was getting pummeled. I am okay with that stoppage. And perhaps Ben and I are in agreement with that. And perhaps we smell like beer and cigarettes. So,
hey man, y'all drinking.
So, all right. So let's move on to, so we'll hit one more actual fight topic as if everything is fine before we get into what I know we really want to discuss. Now, Francis Ngannou absolutely annihilated Jared Rosenstruck in, I believe it was 20 seconds.
Yep.
Now, is he better than he was before? And next time, does he fight for a title?
He might fight for a title next time, but he's on an incredible 4-fight win streak. Jay actually laid this out on Fight Night, where in his last 4 fights, in an average of under a minute per fight, he's knocked out, 2 former champs, 2 previously undefeated fighters, and the only guy that wasn't a top 10 fighter at the time was Cain freaking Velasquez. It's an incredible run, but as incredible as it's been, none of it has made me want to see him fight Stipe Miocic again, because he lost to Miocic because of wrestling defense and cardio. He hasn't shown us any wrestling defense or cardio because he's been killing everybody. It's an impressive run, but there's no indication that he's a different fighter. His striking is still ultra sloppy. It was so funny, like when Rogan was interviewing him in the cage afterwards, and he's trying to talk him through the final punch. Like they have to sit there and watch as he just
and his chin is wide in the air.
Way in the air, just throwing these huge they weren't even like hooks anymore. They were butterfly net, just giant haymakers. It worked out because the last one clipped Rosenstruck and he was dead. But doing that, running at Stipe or Daniel Cormier, if that's what we see next, or is gonna get him. Even doing that, running at 38-year-old Derek Lewis with a bad back, is just gonna get him popped with a single straight punch, right in the nose. So impressive, but I don't believe he's any different a fighter.
Yeah, he's had what I think the combined total has been about half a round in those 4 fights.
242.
Not enough of a sample size to test the cardio there. And that was clearly his that and like you said, the takedown defense. Against Stipe, we think like Kane tried to take him down, but his knee blew out beforehand. So.
And Curtis Blades didn't even try. Curtis Blades
Nope.
might be the best takedown artist in the heavyweight division right now, and he didn't even try. He's like, I'm going to swing with this dude. I don't know why, but QED, not the best plan.
I think he decided to swing with him because he saw Francis Ngannou liking Rachel Ostovich pictures on Instagram. So that's another story there. But anyway, now. I do see Ngannou in a title next, and I hope I'm wrong on this one, but I got a sneaky suspicion, man. After a performance like that, Francis Ngannou was going to be in a title fight next, which I'm okay with, but I think they're going to strip Stipe. I think they are going to strip Stipe Miocic, and Francis Ngannou is going to be fighting probably Daniel Cormier for a title in what will most likely be Cormier's last fight.
And somebody at the Modelo office is going to break his pencil in half and be like, I'm tired of recutting this fucking commercial.
Oh, yeah. So,
man, I feel more than anybody in the division, more than Jairzinho Rozenstruik's broken face, I feel for Stipe right here, right now. Like, dude's a first responder. He's an essential service worker, saving lives and putting out fires and doing whatever else he can to save people during... Oh, crap. What's going on right now in the world? I feel like it's a worldwide global pandemic. And Dana's like, yeah, we're going to just... There's more important things than living and taking care of people. Fighting is more important than that. How are they not using him as the ultimate marketing tool that they can possibly have? Here's our heavyweight champion, the baddest man on the planet, carrying children out of a burning building, etc., etc., etc. How do they not use this as we get onto this, but our heavyweight champion is busy saving lives? How in any universe is there not the ultimate push behind him? I don't understand. I get that he sounds like he's gargling gravel when he speaks. Don't have him say anything. Have him have the full mask on so you can see his face, but he's doing his thing and there's smoke in the building, so he's not going to say anything. He's just saving people, and he pulls a giant beam off of somebody to save their life. How can they not use this accordingly? I mean, like, I make light of it, but no, really, seriously. They are not showing the heavyweight champion who's defended more times than any other champion in his first run. And it just, for what? Ngannou DC isn't going to sell any crazy amount. DC, I love Daniel Cormier, but the reason his pay-per-views sold well were because of his 2 rivalries with John Jones. DC versus Derek Lewis, I don't think blew the doors off. Spoiler alert, it didn't. So to what end? To get the division moving? Stipe is the one guy that has the ultimate excuse for, hey guys, I have much more important things to deal with right now. So what is going on?
I'm just mad at Jay now because he reminded me that the Cormier versus Lewis fight didn't even blow the doors off the Popeyes over on Highway 6 out there and get me some free chicken.
No,
I'm just upset now.
Those even before they had the sandwiches too. So, all right. So, of course, there's no way we can responsibly do this show without addressing what's actually going on in the world and how it has affected the action that we just got finished discussing. So, of course, UFC 249 held with the backdrop of this global pandemic in an empty arena in Jacksonville, Florida. Florida being one of the few places that was willing to, on a state government level, accept the UFC, and they didn't have to go to Native American reservation and deal outside of the regular government bodies that would sanction combat sports. Now, the news that was shocking but shouldn't have been but so shocking that broke the night before the fights, it was after weigh-ins and whatnot, Jacare Souza, former Strikeforce champion, perennial top contender in the UFC's middleweight division, tested positive for COVID-19, along with 2 of his cornermen. Now, the UFC, of course, for obvious reasons, scrapped the bout with Uriah Hall. Notable that in the weigh-ins, Uriah Hall and Jacare were both wearing masks, and they were both standing apart. That was unusual for all the weigh-ins. We saw like Michelle Waterson and Carlos Esparza hugging, Anthony Pettis and Cowboy Cerrone fist bumping and whatnot. So there was physical contact and close proximity between the fighters that would betray social distancing. Now, you had the one fight on the card that was scrapped directly because of COVID-19. The weigh-in shows the 2 in PPE, maintaining a certain amount of distance. And come to find out, the UFC knew of Jacare's exposure to COVID-19 before making it possible for the 2 to be facing off and the fighters to be interacting with one another. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you a question here now. How do you feel about the UFC's handling of this situation? What would you do differently?
All right. I mean, leaving aside how I feel about the advisability of putting on the event at all, if you've decided, okay, it's go time, we're going to put this event on and we're just going to make it as safe as we can. Like, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to take every reasonable precaution and make it as safe as we can. Jacare got there. He said, I know I've been exposed to COVID-19. By whom? Like the guy in the corner, like bake shop that sells you your donuts, a teammate? No, his wife. At that point, a reasonable person goes, okay, the chances are slim to none that you don't have it, even if you're asymptomatic at this point. Option 1, you preemptively pull Jacare. Say, sorry, here's your show money. Uriah Hall, here's your show and win money. Thank you for playing. Go be safe. Failing that, number 2 would be, we're going to test you right now, but knowing that your test is extremely likely to come back positive, we're going to sequester you now so that there's not footage of you goofing around with like a dozen of like your friends and teammates at the fighter hotel the day before weigh-ins. Because, I mean, even Dana, who's been trying to do his, like, just most, toe the party line, this is a win, this is a home run, this is proving that our precautions work. Even he was like, okay, yeah, the optics of that were really bad. Like, he got Dana in the middle of this to admit that, yeah, that was bad. So, yeah, option 1, pull him as soon as he says he's been exposed by someone he actually lives under a roof with. 2, at least keep him separate while you wait for the test results to come back. I mean, even maybe hold him out from, like, have him weigh in somewhere else alone. Like, just keep him out of the room if you don't have the test back. It just seems like the ball was really dropped there, even by the standards of how wise it was to be doing this in the first place. It seems like a failure in precautions.
Agree, Jay?
In this situation, there can't be half measures. There can't be, we'll follow it here, but we won't follow our own protocols there. And that was the issue I found, was that there was no uniform standard, despite the UFC declaring we have a uniform standard. Whether it's how we're handling cases or how we're presenting this or how we're keeping people or how we're separating the facilities or anything, that appeared to be all posturing by all the information and evidence and video footage, by the way, UFC, that we have seen that the best laid plans did not go according to plan. There are so many questions, and I always have to be the guy to say there's questions upon questions. When Jacare showed up to the hotel and said, yeah, my wife has it, you know what they should have said? Well, bye. There's not a how can that be something that people can argue about? How can that possibly be? The best argument they could have is, okay, maybe they're not sure, so they could put them somewhere. Well, they didn't. And Duffy covered this, so I don't want to try and retread the same ground. but it has to be repeated. Why would you put him in the same fighter hotel that has a lobby that all the fighters are standing at? Like, we have the video of him standing there, standing right with Mauricio Werdum, who was on the card. There's Charles Rosa. There's Sam Alvey. There's other fighters. There's other cornermen. There's everybody having a grand old time. Masks and gloves do not protect against 100% exposure. That's the CDC thing. That isn't a crazy goofball with a Hawaiian shirt talking. No, this is all factual information. And that's right, Jacare Souza was also cutting weight this week. So what was he? To the class, he was sweaty. That's what he was. Which sweat and saliva and liquid that comes from your body is a transmission device. So there he is, shirtless, with a mask and gloves on, with the entire rest of his body extolling fluids that are potentially infectious. So, okay, dropped all the balls there, and then fight night happens. And no one seems to know what's happening. And this bothers me because the UFC shouted us down and called us all these names, the media, because we're asking these questions. How dare we? We wanted to know the answers, to know what you're doing. So, okay, this is what you're doing. And then the UFC, we have this 30-page plan. We're going to follow it to a letter. And then didn't. Commission didn't. Commissioners, unmasked, ungloved. Keith Peterson, unmasked, gloved. Dan Rigliotta, gloved, not gloved. Masked halfway through the show. Some people were masked and not gloved. Some people were gloved and not masked. Like, there was no consistency. And this is the one time there has to be consistency to show, because Dana had said, I think Dana said earlier today, you're having leagues call us to say, well, how'd you pull it off? Well, by following this very specific plan, we pulled it off. Well, they didn't follow the plan. So how can you explain to other organizations, this is the plan that works, when A, it didn't work because 3 people had the coronavirus that didn't have it. So you can blame Jacare for his wife not having it. But then you stick Jacare in a car with this camp. Well, now 3 people have it. Jacare is around other people. Who the hell knows how many people have it? So it's a failure because people got sick. And it's a failure because the protocols you laid out, you didn't follow. Now, you can't say it's a success, mission accomplished ahead of you, when clearly you didn't and it wasn't. And it doesn't make sense to me how there's a certain level of hyperbole and untruths to propaganda and marketing that we have to kind of accept as part of the advertising scheme and the posturing. But when we can see they're doing things and you're doing things that you said you weren't going to do, how can we trust anything that's happening in this entire process? And we have 2 more events that are happening in the next 2 days and the next 5 days. And if this is any indication, we're screwed.
And the one on the 23rd is happening in Florida as well, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh no,
yeah,
actually, it is happening in Florida.
Yeah, John Mahal,
I think they were
Hill said today.
Okay, it confirmed it today. All right, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't miss that news. Okay. I mean, first thing I have to say, now this screening where they realized that Jacare's wife had COVID-19 took place at the fighter hotel, like when he goes to check in. Why wasn't this question asked before he traveled to Jacksonville? That seems like the very first thing that you'd want to eliminate is the possibility of a potentially infected fighter traveling to the event site.
Thank goodness he lives in Florida and drove.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, he fortunately was in a car and drove. Now, if Jacare were, like, say this fight took place at the Apex Center where they initially were trying to house all of these fights while we're in flux right now, he would have had to have taken a plane unless Cowboy went to pick him up in the RV. He would have to take a plane, which means he would be around a bunch of other people unnecessarily, because You could have asked him this damn question before he left the house. Also keep in mind too, Jacare was on record with MMA Fighting saying how he was scared of catching this disease, scared for the welfare of his family, but he was facing financial hardships. He was afraid that he was going to be losing his house should he not go and compete. Therefore, he allowed himself to go ahead and get booked on that card that in the Tachi Palace iteration of this as well. So I don't know. I just feel really disgusting about this whole thing. That he's in someone of his caliber, someone who has had championship gold around his waist, someone who in his previous fight main evented. Yeah. This man was in a main event in his previous fight. Yes, the fight was not fun to watch, but he main evented a card where ESPN was giving the UFC, I believe, about $10 million for the worth of that fight, and this man is losing his house. So he throws caution to the wind, specifically for financial reasons. Does anyone not see what's wrong with this picture? So all you bootlickers that are just swearing up and down that like, oh, the UFC's word is golden, and that Dana White can do no wrong, and that this media conglomerate of MMA between Sherdog and Bloody Elbow and Joe's Fist blog have decided to come together to bring down the UFC because we don't want fights. You're a fucking idiot. You are a fucking idiot, and this is exactly why. Now, while I sincerely hope and pray that Jacare and his two teammates do not infect anyone else, and that they are fine, and Jacare's wife and his children are fine. I hope that they recover and everything is fine. But the real story could be around the corner. Do not be surprised if 2 weeks from now you're watching this very show and we're listing a bunch of fighters and a bunch of cornermen and a bunch of UFC staffers and a bunch of media members that are sick. All because you couldn't ask a fucking question before the guy left the house. So please, once again, call us wimps, call us weaklings, tell us what we're doing wrong about asking these questions that you clearly don't have any good answers for. Someone, please answer those damn questions. This is why the media exists. This is why to ask these damn questions. I'm stunned at the level of foolishness it takes to simply close your eyes and be blind to it. You can believe that this is a hoax. You can believe that this is no worse than the flu. But you know what? You'll really believe it when one of your relatives catches it. We all seem to know, I know the two gentlemen I'm talking to right now know someone, or at least know someone who knows someone that's died of this. For Ben, I know your wife has witnessed people dying from this.
Yep.
I know a couple of people that are close to, very, very close to family and friends of mine that have passed from this. This is not a fucking game. This is not a political stunt. This is not a cry for attention. This is an actual health crisis that is a little bit more important than your fucking sports. So if you insist on having these fucking sports taking place, keep in mind the health crisis. Ask the questions before they leave the fucking house. How about that? How about that? That just seems step one. Step one. So we'll just move on to the next topic regarding this.
I will hop in real quick. Mm-hmm. The UFC has tried. Don't worry. There's a good part to it. The UFC has attempted to mitigate that by asking this question now of fighters. By the way, it's Monday, May 11th. Right now, you'll be seeing this on Tuesday, May 12th. The fight night is Wednesday, May 13th. They're asking this now of fighters that are participating on the Wednesday card. They're asking this of fighters. Are they asking this of all the cornermen, of the staff, of the media, of any other people who are attending this event? No. Nope. They're asking the 22 fighters that are going to be competing on this card. That's the most that the UFC has been able to muster in response to this. That's all they got.
Well, I'll tell you what else they got. They thought it would be a wise idea to have everyone attending this event in any capacity, whether it be the fighters, the quartermen, media in attendance, staff of the UFC, commission officials, to sign non-disparagement clauses disguised as waivers to essentially allow the UFC to walk away without any liability if someone were to get sick from COVID-19 at any point as a direct result of them being in attendance for this event. But the real part about this clause is not just the waiver. I think we all would have expected a waiver. The non-disparagement part. And non-disparagement, not disparagement as far as making up lies, but just speaking about it. That they are to not speak any ill of regarding the coronavirus protocols that the UFC has put in place. So we have clearly a huge flaw in the system that Jacare, being infected, traveled to this event and 2 cornermen sick, and everyone has been mingling around despite protocols. We also have Joe Rogan on the mic. Remember, in-cage interviews were not supposed to be a part of this event from the initial reports on the safety protocols.
Himself said no.
Right.
Producer Craig Broussard. So no, this was shut down.
Right. However, there were a lot of Octagon interviews going on. And as we have brought up on the show, Jay, I know you brought this to our attention on this very show some weeks ago, the Muay Thai event where the announcer had COVID-19, and because of him on that microphone all night, passing it back and forth to the winning fighters, 70 people contracted the virus. So you have a situation where all these people are mingling. You have Joe Rogan on the mic. You then have the lunacy of, and which Rogan himself pointed out on the broadcast, the commentators, Daniel Cormier, Rogan, and Anik, sitting at separate tables that are on different sides of the cage, or at least reasonable distance apart. Yet they do their segments to hype up the pay-per-view, standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, they were a little further than usual, but could easily have reached.
No, they were 3 feet apart.
Oh, yeah. Cormier and especially Cormier and Rogan, they were.
Yeah.
So you have all of these things going wrong, and instead of facing it, first of all, they've handled this like an extreme mess anyway. Had they been more forthcoming with information about their safety protocols, the media would have been a fantastic way to pick some of this apart and help you figure out the flaws in the system. It would have been a fantastic way to see other eyeballs on this who are talking to all these experts as well, to say, hey, this should be different. And they can respond in accordance. This is what I feel is going on now, is that this has turned into an ego thing more than a thing about health and safety. And this is an initial complaint in the UFC's push to keep going and keep going. But to purposely say you're going to keep the media in the dark, and when the light is shined on it, you see all this nonsense, you see it done this way, haphazardly. And then you have the goal to have people sign agreements saying that they will not speak ill of it. If there is nothing to speak ill about, there's nothing to sign, is there? If there isn't a flaw in the system, why are you trying to shut down people from talking about flaws in the system? I'm sorry, there is no logic here that says the UFC is doing the right thing in this case. Gentlemen, please correct me if I'm wrong.
You know, I don't even know where to start. As an attorney, I read over the provisions piece by piece. Now, the UFC kind of couches the language to be a little more careful because the legal definition of disparagement is it's almost akin to defamation and false or maliciously untrue statements. Like, you know what you're saying is wrong. But okay, there's a few things. I'll go line by line. I'll try not to be too long about this. First of all, no court worth of salt would find a majority of these provisions enforceable. Like, just if they went to court, they'd be UFC would almost be laughed out of court. But like, seriously, you really think you can have these people sign this? I mean, whether it's waiving, whether it's the fighter or the media member, whomever, waiving the rights of another person to pursue remedy if something happens. Obviously, that's crazy. To use a legal term, that's crazy. To waive gross negligence, which is not waivable. You can't say the UFC was grossly negligent, but they're still not responsible for that. Well, that's not the case. Or the fact that the UFC specifically states they don't have to provide the safeguards they say they're going to provide, but even if we don't, you can't be upset about this. The disparagement clause itself, to have it serves as almost to squelch the media from being concerned about, I don't want to say something the UFC would take incorrect or false, or my opinion goes against their belief. It's laughable to me from a contract perspective, but as somebody that has to sign it, to literally enter the building, cover this event. By the way, these media members were presented this document at the hotel. Like, they got here and said, if you don't sign this damn paper, you're not covering the event. That's all the pressure and coercion you'd need to say, well, I only signed this thing because I had already spent X $100 to cover this event. Defamation is a thing in the legal community, to use a very scientific term. There are already remedies for this. If the media person wrote lies, wrote false statements about whatever's happening, spoiler alert, you can sue for that already. What is the point of this clause in particular, other than to intimidate and to pressure to make people think twice about publishing something? Now, there are only 10 media members, give or take, covering this event, but the concern of it is enough to stop it. If you want to use terms in fighting, the threat of the takedown is enough to change what they're going to do to approach the fight, because they have to prepare. Ooh, what if this happens? The media members look at this language and think, oh boy, if I say something that it's an opinion and the UFC takes it as fact, they can sue me. Well, yes, anybody can sue anybody in this world, but you'd have to fight over it. Now, the other issue, of course, is the UFC has substantially deep pockets. Media organizations or people covering this event probably won't. The Las Vegas Review-Journal probably isn't going to want to go to war with the UFC, so they may be inclined to say, okay, we'll drop this or whatever, because a prolonged legal battle over a contract is not advisable. It provides what we call a chilling effect to speech in the press, which means you're discouraging people to say what is actually happening because of fear of reprisal and retribution. Now, it essentially could serve as almost an anti-whistleblower provision, that you agree not to blow the lid off if we're doing something wrong here. To answer the original question and to wrap this up, would I have signed it? Well, here's the thing. I'm an attorney, so I can look at this and go, well, that obviously can't happen. So I would sign it on the basis of being able to cover this event, knowing there's no way this contract is an actual legally binding contract, because it's really not. But other media members don't have that thought. They just go, well, crap, I guess I have to toe the line. And it's the kind of the blanket measure the UFC uses to control and hope nobody challenges them over it. The most important thing that has to happen is happening. Bloody Elbow did a great expose. I mean, the Bloody Elbow and the UFC are like this, obviously. The UFC has to have its feet held to the fire to expose this, because as we say, sunshine's the greatest disinfectant. This needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Seriously, you're pulling that now? So yeah, to use a legal term, no, hell no.
Well, Jay, I think Ben, unless you have anything to add on this, I think we all should hope that this sunshine that can that can disinfect. I hope we can somehow inject it into our bodies. So there's that.
Well, no, I am curious, Duffy. Would you, if you were presented this contract, if you were covering 249, and you said, "Here, you have to sign this," what would you have done? Putting you on the spot.
I wouldn't have signed it. I'm not an attorney. I'm barely a journalist. But my thing is, both of you looking at me through these cameras right now, like, have intimate firsthand knowledge of how willing I am to fall on my sword over principle. I'll just leave that at that.
For that.
I've been in this space in a professional capacity for a little over 2 years at this point. I do make money from it. In a media space where not a lot of people make much money, I'm very fortunate in that regard. Having said that, it's not my only or even my primary source of income. I don't have any aspirations to be one of the foremost, like, most visible people in MMA media. You know, I'm here to, meet people, watch fights, and tell stories. And I consider myself very fortunate to do that. But because I don't need it, I'm willing to burn it all down at the drop of a fucking hat. If I'd arrived at that hotel, no matter how excited I was to see that, and they presented me with that, I'd be like, no, you guys are full of shit. I'll go sleep in my car and bail for Texas in the morning. I'm not the most talented guy in this space. I'm not the best writer, definitely not the best speaker, not the best analyst. I'm pretty good at a few things, despite how Ant likes to introduce me at the beginning of the show. I'm just a guy who's pretty good at a few things. What I do have is my integrity. Like, and that sounds corny and it sounds pretentious, but it's really the only thing I have to trade on that has any real value. I've never told a lie here. I've never really held back from saying what I felt. So if I sign something that says I will not tell the truth about what I see and how I feel about it, I have nothing. And I would absolutely burn down, like, my budding MMA media career for that. No question.
All right. Well said. Well said. Here's one too, and I think they tried to address this in from what I read on the Bloody Elbow article in there, that they're not supposed to disclose what happened to any third party.
Yep.
Yeah. Try to enforce that one. Really try to enforce that one.
Considering that specific wording of those, like, was leaked pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'll just put it this way. I think all three of us know at least a couple people that were in Jacksonville or are still in Jacksonville right now, and can get all the details and report all of it if we saw fit. If I were one of the media members there, and I signed that silly little contract, and if I thought that it was enforceable, I would simply just call one of you guys and tell you what happened, off the record, of course, and you can write whatever you see fit as a result. So nice try. All right.
UFC try so.
All right, so let's go ahead, and I know we've gone grossly over time this week due to some serious stuff to talk about. So we'll try to get things moving along so we can wrap things up in a timely fashion here. But let's make sure that no Unleashed goes by without a moment to recognize the greatest title in all of media history, the segment known as I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. So we actually had some fights going on this weekend. So there might be something related to pre-fight coverage, the fights themselves, or anything that happened afterward, and of course the rest of the combat sports world. So Ben, what is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Dominick Cruz. I was surprised and remain surprised at Cruz's reaction to his loss to Cejudo. I mean, Dominick Cruz, he's not everybody's cup of tea. Like, I'm kind of surprised that there was so much kind of like fan love behind him going into this fight, because I think of him as like kind of an unpopular guy. But I mean, he is an acerbic, sharp-tongued, witty, glib guy. I mean, you remember him just cutting Cody Garbrandt to pieces in the lead up to their fight. What happened after that fight? It might as well have been a TED Talk on how to be a gracious loser. It was unbelievable. He was sincere, forthright, humble, spoke directly to why he had lost the fight, seemed to genuinely congratulate Garbrandt. I never thought that was real. I assumed he still hated Garbrandt and wanted to fight him again immediately. But it was very Cruz because he's been a professional speaker more than a professional fighter for the last 8 years. He has a very manicured and buttoned down public demeanor and public image. So to just see him go off like most UFC fighters would was very surprising to me. Like, that's not on brand for Dominick Cruz. So yeah, very surprised to see him just lash out at the ref, with some pretty personal digs, saying that he smelled of cigars and whiskey, cigarettes and beer. Yeah, like, if smelling like beer is wrong, I don't want to be right. Anyway, that's my moment.
Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment this week?
So coming into the UFC 249 fight week, when fighters and media members entered the area, they had to sign this agreement. No, okay, all right, fine. I won't go into that again. All right, main card opener: Yorgan De Castro, Greg Hardy. First of all, I understand they're trying to push the Hardy thing, but really, that fight was on the main card over Luque Price? Okay, weird. Whatever, fine. Whatever you want to do, guys. Okay. First of all, the scorecard itself was 30-27 across the board for Greg Hardy. How do I say no? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Okay. Not just me, but two other SureDog.com official scorers also gave the first round to Yorgan De Castro. Now, granted, that was the only round he won. Because, question mark? Now, he won the first round, had some leg kicks, got some short offense going. He did some more damage. And Hardy's leg was starting to get busted up. Second round comes around, and then he kicks, and a leg kick is kind of partially sort of checked, and that was it. That was the end of the fight. For 10 more minutes, Yorgan De Castro kind of just stood there. And we've seen fighters get injured and shut down. We've seen fighters get injured and go crazy. You can think of the latter, like Uriah Faber, when he broke both of his hands, decided, hey, Mike Brown, I'm going to elbow you in the face now. Awesome. Yorgan De Castro didn't do that. Now, whatever may have happened, I still don't know. Maybe there's a light been shown, but I still don't know if he was injured or whatnot. But he didn't have the heart or the wherewithal or the knowledge of, oh, crap, I'm in a bad way, because he was undefeated at the time, to know, oh, maybe I need to change it up. He was stuck. He was stuck in first gear, and to a degree that I made a joke, and I think it was the SureDog Slack chat, that this was kind of like Nate Corey, Caleb Starnes, and just, I don't want to fight anymore. You want to know something crazy? In the last 2 rounds of Corey versus Starnes, Starnes landed 10 significant strikes. Yorgan De Castro landed 9. Oof. So I am shocked by that complete and total transformation of the performance. Now, I'm not a fighter. I'm just some goofball in a Hawaiian shirt, so I'm not going to question his heart or any of that drama. But, hey, what happened? I mean, I don't understand. And I wish I could understand, because I'm surprised.
As I said on Matt Hunter's Mixed Combat Radio post-fight show Saturday night, that's a fight that would normally be like in LFA or CES or some regional promotion. Absolutely. And if Hardy then knocked out his next opponent, then he might get a call up to the UFC and be fighting on like the second prelim of the night. Not for a pay-per-view main card with two fighters at this caliber. Just definitely a horrible way to start off the paid portion of the evening. Now, my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of one BKFC. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship just keeps on delivering the goods. And I don't know if this is within the week. I can't quite remember, but I would not feel right if we did any more content on the Walkout Network without mentioning the $20 million that was offered to Mike Tyson to compete in BKFC. First of all, do we believe that BKFC has $20 million? No, we do not. No. Second, I want to give a shout out to the fake BKFC president Dave Feldman account that tweeted out that Mike Tyson and Shannon Briggs were going to be meeting each other in the promotion, and how many people thought it was serious, including Shannon Briggs, who seemed to accept the fight over Twitter by retweeting it saying, "Let's go, champ." So, wow, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. BKFC keeps on making me smile. All right.
That's you can fake that. See, if I tried to make a fake UFC account and I had 24 followers, like, people would spot it pretty quickly. It helps that the real BKFC account sucks. So
that Keith Peterson fake account, if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
So
I think he followed me today. Yeah.
In response to the statement that Dominick Cruz accused Keith Peterson of, somebody changed their Twitter handle. It was some troll account, like a McGregor Rousey kind of thing. Changed theirs to Keith Peterson MMA, and started just butchering Cruz. Like a meme of Cruz knocked out with the text saying how I feel after a night of booze and cigarettes or something. Just I don't like troll fake accounts. I think they're a waste of time and resources, but that's why I'm on Twitter.
Well done,
Rodney James Edgar.
That actually wouldn't surprise me at all. That would not be a shock whatsoever. Shout out to the homie Rodney, man. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll wrap things up with the speed bag. So this time we've added a couple more questions, just things that we didn't want to leave out there, but we didn't want to speak about for a half hour each. So let's go ahead and put 10 seconds on the clock for each of us. I will just kind of let the thing continually go, and we'll go ahead and get this done. Now, I will start with you on this one, Ben. George St-Pierre is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Is there a fighter more worthy of this than GSP?
No. I mean, specifically a UFC Hall of Fame. No, he's it.
All right. And Jay.
Man, I wrote an article when he retired, a retrospective piece. He is his first ballot as they come. And he has to, right on. Where's Chance Pulver, by the way?
Yeah, the only other names James Pulver and Frank Shamrock are glaring omissions, but GSP needs some more. 100%. All right. So, next question. With Ferguson losing, is this match with Khabib off the table for good now? Jay, you get the first one.
This is the new decade's version of Silva versus GSP. This is a fight that has never been and will never be, and what a damn shame.
Absolutely. Duffy.
We might still see it. What if Gaethje beats Khabib in September? I still want to see it because Khabib has none of the tools that Gaethje used to beat Ferguson. It would be a different fight. Still want to see it.
Yeah. I think we'll see it, but it's just in a depleted version. It'll be sort of like Chuck and Vanderlei when it finally happened. Good, but could have been better. All right, now, third question. I guess I'll just go ahead and take this one since I should be going up first. Out of Jeremy Stephens, Donald Cerrone, Fabricio Werdum, and Sam Alvey, will any of them retire after their losses at UFC 249? I think we can rule Donald Cerrone out right away. So let's not even entertain that foolishness. Jeremy Stephens, I don't know. I mean, Fabricio Werdum probably the most likely. Duffy.
No, I don't think so. I don't even think any of them have to. Cerrone looked better than I expected.
No. Jay?
Stephens is 33. Nope. Alvey's 34. Nope. Cerrone's going to fight like a dozen more times, so no. And Verdum's going to go over fighting Bellator, so no one's retiring.
Verdum, Fedor too.
Yeah.
Actually, probably a possibility in a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a rumor going around the Dominance MMA Media Day that Fabricio Werdum had signed with BKFC. So that dead serious. That was
Fedor
something.
versus Werdum and BK.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so now I think we know the answer to this question, but we'll just go ahead and put the time on the clock. Anyway, Jay, I'll start with you.
I'm sorry, give me just a sec. Just by saying that sentence, Fedor's hands both just broke. All right, now please go ahead.
So it's the Charles Bennett effect.
So who should Petr Yan fight for the vacant bantamweight title? Jay, I'll start with you.
Jose Aldo! No, I'm kidding. Aljo Sterling or bust. If he doesn't want to have a full training camp because the pandemic. Go Corey Sandhagen. That's all there is to it.
Duffy.
Aljo or Sandhagen is fine. I'd say Moraes, except that he's already had a shot at it. I want to see someone new.
I mean, I would say Aljo clearly, but Cejudo ain't going nowhere. Cejudo versus Yan or Sterling will be next once he realizes there's no money in waiting.
Mark.
All right, now the last question on the speed bag, and I will start with you on this one, Ben. Is Justin Gaethje the man to dethrone Khabib Nurmagomedov? Go.
I still don't favor him, but I think his chances are a lot better than I thought they were 2 days ago.
And Jay, what say you?
Man, Gaethje's the kind of striker that if he can land on Khabib, ooh, boy, it makes you wonder. But he's going to get put in his back. I'd favor Khabib by ground and pound, grind. Am I go too far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Khabib wins that as well, but should be interesting style matchup if it happens. All right,
the grind.
All right, so of course we've got we've got a fight night card headlined by Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this card. Just quickly, very quickly, one fight that you want to highlight, Ben.
Ike Villanueva versus Chase Sherman, of course. You know, Hurricane Ike, a Houston guy. I'm excited for him to go and surprise some people because, like I said last week, when you are a 16-9, 35-year-old customary light heavyweight making his UFC debut on short notice, you are being brought in to be the other guy. I want to see Hurricane Ike surprise some people, drop some jaws, and represent swanging and banging.
All right, Jay, what are you looking forward to? One fight on this card that you want to highlight briefly.
Well, you don't want to read my Prime Picks piece then, Duffy. Alex Hernandez, Drew Dober. That I look at the lineup, I'm one by one going through them, and I just feel that one's going to be a banger. Like, you know, it just kind of goes. You go, that's the fight that it's going to be a 3-round brawl, bloody, messy, crazy, fun. I want that fight to be that. I want it because you look on the rest of the card, and there aren't a lot of fights like that. There are some really close fights, but no disrespect to anybody fighting this card, but what a difference 3 days makes. We have one of the best cards in UFC history, and then we have Ben Rothwell, OSP, as the co-main of the next one. Cool.
Funny, actually, I wanted to briefly mention the OSP Ben Rothwell fight, simply because OSP's heavyweight debut. I mean, he is a very, very large person, so for him being a decent sized heavyweight does not surprise me at all. But yeah, I guess I missed out my chance to question whether or not Ray Borg makes weight. All right, so now
hold on. What do we do? What do we do if OSP gets the Von Flue choke? What do we do? What do we call it?
I mean, I think Ben Rothwell just counters with that little guillotine choke that he perfected. I don't know. Who knows, man? That's crazy. It's always the St. Preux choke, so it should have been renamed a long time ago anyway. But fellas, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of Unleashed. Man, it was a long one. It was a marathon, but we got through it. Definitely want to say thank you to Jay, thank you to Ben for all the fine work on the Walkout Network. As always, check out their great content on Sherdog.com. You can find some of my work there as well. Some of my work also on MMA On Point and a little bit on my MMA news as well. So you can look down below, see these wonderful Twitter handles. Give us a follow on those social media platforms. Also, go ahead, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. And you know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. You've got to do the screening before you leave the house. And through it all, you've got to stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.